If you're over 60, you already know every bite, every sip, every choice you make at the table isn't just about calories, it's about survival. At this stage of life, the wrong foods don't just expand your waistline, they accelerate aging, fuel inflammation, and quietly push you toward diseases you thought you could dodge. And one of the most overlooked culprits hiding in plain sight: milk. We've been told for decades that milk does the body good, but here's the truth. Not all milks are created equal. In fact, some of the most common varieties sitting in your fridge, or worse, being marketed as healthy alternatives, are spiking your blood sugar, corroding your bones, and wreaking havoc on your liver. That's right. The very drink you think is protecting you may be robbing you of your health. At 60 and beyond, your metabolism slows, insulin resistance creeps in, and muscle mass declines. That means what you drink has an even bigger impact. The wrong milk can accelerate frailty and inflammation, but the right milk, it can stabilize blood sugar, protect your heart, preserve muscle, and even sharpen your brain. The difference comes down to one word: biochemistry. Some milks are loaded with added sugars, processed oils, or hormone disruptors that hijack your system. Others deliver essential proteins, anti-inflammatory fats, and nutrients that your aging body is desperate for. So, if you're pouring milk into your morning coffee, smoothie, or cereal without thinking twice, stop. The type of milk you choose could be the single most important dietary decision you make after 60. Let's break down the 4 milks you should never touch and the 4 you should drink daily to stay strong, sharp, and disease-resistant. We've been indoctrinated with the phrase, milk does the body good. You've seen the commercials, you've watched athletes hold a glass of milk like it was liquid muscle, you've probably even repeated the line to your children or grandchildren. But let's be very clear, not all milk is good. In fact, some forms of milk are biochemical landmines, especially once you're over 60. Here's the problem. When we use the word milk, we act as though it's one thing. It's not. Milk is not a monolith. Cow's milk today is not the same as cow's milk. 50 years ago, almond milk isn't remotely the same as oat milk. Even 2 cartons labeled skim milk may behave differently in your body depending on how they were processed, how the cows were raised, or what additives were slipped into the packaging. The assumption that all milk is healthy is not only wrong, it's dangerous. For those over 60, the danger is magnified. Why? Because the body changes with age. Insulin sensitivity drops, making your system less able to tolerate sugar surges. Muscle mass declines, making protein more important than ever. Inflammation simmers at low levels, and the wrong foods fan the flames. Bones become more fragile, and yet calcium metabolism depends not just on calcium but on vitamin D, magnesium, and protein. The wrong milk can undermine all of these processes at once. Take skim milk, for example. It was marketed as the healthy alternative because it cut out the fat. But what you're left with is essentially lactose water. Lactose is a sugar. Without fat to buffer its absorption, it rushes into your bloodstream, spikes your glucose, and drives insulin release. Over time, this fuels insulin resistance, the root cause of type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and even Alzheimer's. For someone over 60, with an already slowing metabolism, a tall glass of skim milk is basically dessert disguised as health food. Now let's look at the plant-based boom. Almond milk, oat milk, soy milk, cashew milk, these are everywhere. They're presented as the enlightened choice. But here's the catch. Most commercial plant-based milks are less about plants and more about processing. Flip over the carton. You'll often find added sugars, gums, emulsifiers, and seed oils. That almond milk you thought was pure may contain more cane sugar than almonds. And oat milk? It's the darling of coffee shops, but biochemically, it's a sugar bomb. Why? Because when oats are processed into liquid, their starch gets broken down into maltose, which has a glycemic index nearly twice that of table sugar. For someone trying to control blood glucose after 60, oat milk can be worse than soda. Soy milk brings its own problems. Yes, it has protein, but it also carries phytoestrogens, plant compounds that mimic estrogen in the body. For younger individuals, this might not matter much, but for older adults, especially men with declining testosterone or women with hormone-sensitive conditions, soy milk can tip the balance in unintended ways. Add to that the fact that most soy in the US is genetically modified and heavily sprayed with glyphosate, and suddenly that healthy soy latte doesn't look so clean. Even traditional whole milk isn't off the hook. Industrial dairy cows are pumped with hormones and antibiotics, fed grain instead of grass, and kept in conditions that alter the very composition of their milk. The result? Milk that contains higher inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids and potential hormone residues that your body doesn't need, especially not when you're over 60 and already fighting natural hormonal shifts. So why does all this matter? Because at this stage of life, your margin for error is smaller. The wrong milk doesn't just add a few empty calories, it accelerates the processes you're already trying to slow. Inflammation, insulin resistance, muscle loss, bone thinning, and cognitive decline. That glass of milk can either stabilize your body or destabilize it. Let's make this practical. Imagine two different seniors starting their day. One pours a tall glass of skim milk with his cereal. He thinks he's making a heart-healthy choice because it's fat-free. But what actually happens? His blood sugar spikes, his insulin surges, and by mid-morning he's hungry again. His pancreas works overtime, his liver stores fat, and his brain gets a rush of sugar, followed by a crash. Day after day, this fuels metabolic disease. The other senior stirs a splash of unsweetened, protein-rich, clean milk into her coffee. She's careful to avoid added sugars and processed fillers. Her drink provides not just calories, but nutrients that support muscle maintenance and stable energy. She doesn't crash mid-morning, her inflammation stays in check, and her body gets what it needs without biochemical sabotage. Same act, drinking milk, radically different outcomes. That's why lumping all milk together is such a mistake. The food industry wants you to believe the carton matters less than the concept. They profit when you stop asking questions and just keep pouring. But the truth is in the label, the processing, and the biochemistry. Not all milk is healthy. For someone over 60, some milks are actively harmful. The key is awareness. Before you pour, ask what's actually in this milk. Is it sugar masquerading as health? Is it processed to the point of dysfunction? Is it delivering what my aging body truly needs or stealing it? Once you start looking through that lens, the marketing slogans crumble. Because in the end, milk is not just a drink, it's chemistry in a glass. And at this stage of life, the chemistry has to work for you, not against you. Choose the wrong milk and you feed disease. Choose the right one and you feed longevity. When you're young, your body is forgiving. You can pull an all-nighter, eat pizza for breakfast, wash it down with chocolate milk, and somehow still bounce back the next day. But after 60? Not anymore. The metabolism that once burned like a roaring furnace has shifted into a slow, careful ember. The rules of the game have changed, and what you could get away with in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s can now come back to haunt you. This is not about vanity. It's about physiology. As you age, every biochemical pathway in your body works differently. Your cells don't respond to insulin the way they used to. Your mitochondria, the little power plants inside your cells, don't generate energy as efficiently. Muscle tissue, which acts as a glucose sponge, starts to shrink if you don't fight to maintain it. And your fat tissue, especially visceral fat around your organs, becomes more inflammatory, pumping out cytokines that make everything hurt a little more and heal a little less. So here's the truth. The same foods, the same drinks, the same glass of milk that once seemed harmless or even beneficial can hit your body very differently after 60. Let's break this down. Start with sugar. In your 20s, a sugary latte with some sweetened milk might spike your blood glucose, but your muscles were big enough and insulin sensitive enough to soak it up quickly. By 60, those same muscles have thinned, your insulin sensitivity has dropped, and now that same sugar surge lingers in your bloodstream longer. What happens next? Your pancreas works harder to pump out insulin, your liver stores more fat, and your brain gets stuck on a roller coaster of highs and lows. That's why older adults often complain of brain fog, fatigue, and cravings. They're living in the metabolic aftershock of a system that no longer clears sugar effectively. Protein tells a different story. At 30, you might not have thought twice about skipping a protein source in your drink. By 60, protein is non-negotiable. Muscle mass doesn't just decline, it withers unless you intervene. And milk is one of those foods that can either provide the protein you desperately need to hold on to muscle or rob you of it if it's stripped away, as in skim or highly diluted plant-based versions. Every sip is either helping you maintain strength and independence or hastening frailty. And then there's fat. For decades, fat was demonized. You were told whole milk was dangerous, that the fat would clog your arteries. But here's the paradox. After 60, fat, specifically the right kinds of fat, is one of your greatest allies. It slows digestion, steadies blood sugar, supports brain function, and helps absorb fat-soluble vitamins like D and K, both of which are critical for bone and immune health. A splash of real unprocessed whole milk can nourish. A tall glass of fat-free, sugar-laden alternative can destabilize. The metabolism of youth could tolerate the swings. The metabolism of age cannot. Calcium absorption is another metabolic shift that most people don't realize. In your younger years, your gut could absorb calcium from almost any dairy source. After 60, declining stomach acid and hormonal changes reduce that efficiency. That means it's not just about how much calcium you consume, it's about whether your body can actually use it. And guess what? Calcium without the proper fat and protein to support absorption often goes to waste. That's another reason why fat-free milk, touted as heart-healthy, can actually shortchange your bones. Even liver function plays a role here. At 25, your liver could handle a fair amount of dietary insult, fructose, alcohol, even processed additives, and bounce back. By 60, the liver is more vulnerable. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, once unheard of, now affects millions of older adults, driven by decades of sugar exposure and processed foods. The wrong milk, particularly those loaded with added sugars or industrial oils, can accelerate fatty liver, while the right milk can provide nutrients like choline and healthy fats that support liver resilience. Now let's talk hormones. Aging is essentially a slow rebalancing act of every hormone in the body. Insulin becomes less efficient. Growth hormone declines. Testosterone in men and estrogen in women taper off. All of this changes how your body uses food as fuel. Milk interacts with these pathways. A sugar-heavy milk product spikes insulin, worsening resistance. A soy-based milk with high phytoestrogens may disrupt hormonal balance further. Conversely, a clean, protein-rich milk source can actually support muscle-preserving signals, which in turn keep metabolism from sliding off a cliff. The food industry wants you to believe that a calorie is a calorie, that what mattered at 30 still matters at 60. But that's nonsense. Your metabolic machinery isn't the same machine anymore. At 60, it's less about the number of calories and more about the quality of information those calories are delivering to your cells. Sugar tells your body to store fat and inflame. Protein tells your body to preserve muscle. Fat tells your body to slow digestion and support the brain. Calcium and vitamin D tell your bones to hold strong. Every glass of milk, every splash in your coffee is a biochemical message. The question is, what message is your metabolism hearing? Let me put this in practical terms. Imagine two older adults at breakfast. One chooses a bowl of cereal with skim milk. To the naked eye, it looks like a low-fat, sensible choice. But under the hood, what's happening? Blood sugar surges, insulin rises, and within 2 hours, hunger comes crashing back. That person will likely snack more, accumulate fat around the liver, and accelerate insulin resistance. Now picture the other adult who chooses a smaller serving of whole milk or a high-quality, unsweetened nut milk fortified with protein. Their blood sugar stays stable, hunger is satisfied, and the nutrients actually get absorbed. That choice doesn't just feed the body, it preserves its function. Same age, same mealtime, but very different metabolic outcomes. This is why aging changes the rules. Milk is no longer just milk. It's either medicine or poison, depending on how it intersects with your metabolism. The body you live in after 60 is not the body you lived in before. And unless you respect that shift, you're playing with fire. When your metabolism slows, the margin for error shrinks. That's why choosing the right milk is not trivial. It's pivotal. At 60 and beyond, you can't drink like you did at 20 and expect the same results. You must think biochemically. Because your body already is. Food is not just calories. It's not just fuel. It's information. Every bite, every sip, every mouthful you take is a coded message delivered to your cells. The question is, what message are you sending? When you're over 60, those messages matter more than ever because your body has less resilience, less wiggle room, less capacity to clean up the mess. That's why biochemistry, the actual nuts and bolts of how food interacts with your hormones, enzymes, and pathways, matters far more than the marketing labels on the carton. Let's start with the most obvious culprit, sugar. Sugar in milk comes in the form of lactose, which the body breaks down into glucose and galactose. At younger ages, your muscles and liver can handle that surge more efficiently. But with age, insulin resistance sets in. That means your body doesn't respond to insulin signal as well, so the glucose sticks around in your blood longer. Chronically elevated blood sugar leads to glycation, the sticky process where sugars attach to proteins and fats in your body, creating advanced glycation end products, AGEs. These AGEs do exactly what their name suggests. They age you. They stiffen your arteries, cloud your lenses, damage your nerves, and slow your healing. Every time you drink a high-sugar milk, like oat milk or sweetened almond milk, you're fueling glycation and inflammation. Now look at fat. We were told for decades that fat was the enemy. Low fat was supposed to mean healthy. But biochemistry tells a different story. Fat isn't just a dense calorie source, it's a regulator. The right fats, like omega-3s, calm inflammation and protect brain membranes. The wrong fats, like industrial seed oils, often added to processed plant milks, do the opposite. They oxidize, inflame, and destabilize your mitochondria. For someone over 60, whose baseline inflammation is already higher, those seed oils are like throwing gasoline on a smoldering fire. On the other hand, whole milk from grass-fed cows contains conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, and a healthier balance of omega-3 to omega-6, which support metabolic health. Same milk, but radically different biochemical impact. Protein is another piece of the puzzle. Protein is not just a muscle builder, it's a metabolic signal. When you consume high-quality protein, it stimulates muscle protein synthesis through the mTOR pathway. After 60, this becomes essential because sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass, is accelerating. Without enough protein, your muscles waste away, but not all proteins are equal. Many plant-based milks contain barely 1 gram of protein per cup, compared to 8 grams in cow's milk. That means if you're relying on almond or rice milk, you're sending your body the signal of carbohydrate overload without the balancing signal of protein preservation. The message? Break down muscle, store fat. That's not the message you want at this stage of life. Then there are additives, the invisible disruptors, emulsifiers, thickeners, gums, stabilizers. You see them on labels as carrageenan, guar gum, or polysorbate 80. They may seem harmless, but biochemically, they interfere with the gut lining. Studies show that certain emulsifiers alter the microbiome and thin the mucus layer that protects your intestinal wall, making it more permeable. The result is leaky gut, where inflammatory molecules sneak into your bloodstream and ignite systemic inflammation. At 30, your immune system might have brushed this off. At 60, with a slower repair rate and an immune system already in overdrive, this small irritation becomes chronic inflammation, the driver of nearly every disease of aging. Hormones also enter the picture. Conventional dairy milk often contains residues of bovine growth hormone or estrogens from pregnant cows. Biochemically, these can nudge your own hormonal balance in ways you don't want. For older men, excess estrogen exposure can contribute to lower testosterone, less muscle mass, and more abdominal fat. For women, especially those with a history of hormone-sensitive cancers, it's an added risk. Contrast that with organic, hormone-free milk or goat's milk, which carries a cleaner biochemical profile and less hormonal interference. Again, it's not milk as a blanket concept. It's the precise molecules riding along with it that determine whether it helps or harms. Even micronutrients follow the same rule. Calcium in isolation doesn't guarantee strong bones. Biochemically, calcium needs vitamin D, vitamin K2, and magnesium to actually deposit into bone instead of arteries. Some milks, like grass-fed dairy, provide these cofactors naturally. Many plant milks are fortified, but often with calcium carbonate, a poorly absorbed form that can contribute to kidney stones rather than bone strength. Two labels both say calcium 30% daily value, but biochemically, one strengthens your skeleton, the other may harden your arteries. This is why the calories in, calories out model collapses under scrutiny. It assumes all calories are equal, but your biochemistry proves otherwise. A calorie of oat milk spiking maltose sugar and triggering insulin is not the same as a calorie of unsweetened, protein-rich grass-fed milk. One tells your body to store fat and inflame. The other tells your body to preserve muscle and stabilize. Calories are just the vessel, biochemistry is the message. So, when you're over 60, every glass of milk you drink should be seen for what it really is, a biochemical intervention. You're not just quenching thirst or adding creaminess to coffee. You're signaling pathways, metabolic, hormonal, inflammatory, that either push you toward health or toward disease. The milk you choose is either turning genes on that fight disease or genes on that fuel it. This is why biochemistry matters. It strips away the marketing and the slogans and brings you face to face with reality. Milk is not good or bad in the abstract. It is only as good or bad as the molecules it carries and the messages those molecules send. At 60 and beyond, you can't afford to send the wrong messages. The wrong milk whispers inflame, weaken, age faster. The right milk whispers strengthen, stabilize, stay sharp. And those whispers, repeated daily, become your body's story. When people ask me, is milk good or bad? My answer is simple, wrong question. The truth is, the right milk can be one of the most powerful tools you have in your nutritional arsenal, especially after 60. The wrong milks are biochemical sabotage. The right ones are biochemical support. They aren't just neutral. They actively defend your body against the very forces that age you. Inflammation, muscle loss, bone thinning, metabolic slowdown, and cognitive decline. Think about it. Every day after 60, you're walking a biochemical tightrope. Your blood sugar wants to creep up. Your bones want to get brittle. Your muscles want to shrink. Your arteries want to stiffen. Your brain wants to fog. The right milk is not just a beverage, it's a daily buffer against these processes. Let's look at why. First, protein. Milk proteins, especially casein and whey, are not just building blocks, they're signals. They trigger muscle protein synthesis, telling your body, don't break down muscle, build it. After 60, this signal becomes vital. Without it, you lose muscle mass, which translates to weakness, frailty, and higher fall risk. With it, you preserve strength and independence. A glass of high-quality cow's milk, goat's milk, or protein-fortified plant milk is not simply nourishment, it's a daily reinforcement of your muscle tissue, your metabolism's biggest ally. Then there's fat. The right kind, whole milk from grass-fed cows contains conjugated linoleic acid, phthalate, and omega-3 fatty acids, both anti-inflammatory. Fat also slows digestion, which means the natural lactose sugar in milk enters your bloodstream more slowly, avoiding those glucose spikes that drive insulin resistance. The right milk fat is not clogging your arteries, it's calming inflammation and stabilizing energy. For your brain, which is 60% fat by weight, these molecules are raw material for repair and protection. At 60 and beyond, fat is not the villain, it's the shield. Calcium is another story. We've all been taught that calcium is good for bones, but bones aren't just calcium, they're a living tissue that requires protein, vitamin D, vitamin K2, and magnesium to keep calcium where it belongs. The right milk either provides these cofactors naturally in the case of whole dairy from well-raised animals, or is fortified intelligently in the case of high-quality plant milks. This synergy ensures calcium strengthens bones instead of calcifying arteries. When your bones are more fragile and your arteries more vulnerable, that distinction is everything. The microbiome also enters the picture. Fermented milk products like kefir or yogurt aren't just milk, they're medicine for your gut. They deliver probiotics and bioactive peptides that reduce inflammation, improve digestion, and even influence mood and cognition through the gut-brain axis. At 60, your gut lining is thinner and your microbiome less diverse, leaving you more vulnerable to inflammatory leaks. A daily dose of probiotic-rich milk can literally reseal the barrier and rearm your immune system. That's protection at the most fundamental level. Even goat's milk deserves special mention. Its fat globules are smaller, and its proteins easier to digest, making it a gentler option for older adults with sensitive digestion. Biochemically, it delivers many of the same nutrients as cow's milk, but in a form that's less inflammatory for those with sensitivities. For people over 60, where digestive efficiency declines, this difference can be the key between nourishment and discomfort. And let's not forget the plant-based options. Because yes, some of them qualify as protective when chosen wisely. An unsweetened protein-fortified almond milk or pea milk with added calcium, vitamin D, and no gums or seed oils can provide hydration and nutrients without the sugar overload. For people with dairy sensitivities or ethical concerns, these clean plant milks can still deliver protection if you read the label carefully and avoid the traps. Now, why do these protective qualities matter so much more after 60? Because your margin for error is gone. In your youth, your body could handle some abuse, extra sugar, missing protein, inflammatory oils, and still recover. After 60, resilience drops. A few wrong choices push you toward disease, but the right choices, they don't just maintain, they actively defend. Picture two scenarios. One older adult starts the day with a latte made with oat milk. It tastes great, feels light, and seems trendy. But under the hood, the maltose sugar spikes glucose higher than table sugar, insulin surges, and inflammation smolders. Muscles get no protein signal, bones get no real support, and the liver accumulates fat. The daily messages break down, inflame, weaken. Now picture another adult starting the day with a glass of grass-fed whole milk or unsweetened protein-rich almond milk. Blood sugar stays stable, protein signals muscles to hold steady. Anti-inflammatory fats protect the brain. Calcium and vitamins support bones. The daily messages preserve, stabilize, protect. After a month, the difference is subtle. After a decade, the difference is survival. This is what protective means at a biochemical level. The right milks don't just avoid harm, they deliver nutrients in the right form, in the right balance, at the right time for the body you have now, not the one you had 40 years ago. They reinforce your strengths and guard your vulnerabilities. The food industry wants you to think milk is just another drink, a neutral carrier for your coffee or cereal. But in reality, every sip is an intervention. The wrong milk accelerates aging. The right milk slows it. The wrong milk erodes your defenses. The right milk builds them up. At 60 and beyond, that difference isn't just academic. It's the difference between decline and resilience. The right milks are protective because they don't just fill your stomach, they fortify your body against the inevitable march of time. And in a world where everything else seems stacked against you, sugar in everything, toxins in the environment, a slowing metabolism, you need all the protection you can get. Every decision you make about food is a chemical decision, whether you realize it or not. And when you're over 60, those decisions accumulate faster, hit harder, and last longer. That's why I say food is medicine, but it can also be poison. Milk is no exception. In fact, because it's such a daily staple, poured into coffee, blended into smoothies, splashed over cereal, it may be the single most consistent dietary choice you make, which means it's also the most consistent dose of medicine or the most consistent drip of toxin. The difference comes down to what you choose every single day. This isn't hyperbole. Think of how drugs work. You don't feel one pill of a statin or one dose of blood pressure medication. But over weeks and months, the cumulative effect changes your lab values, your symptoms, and your risk of disease. Milk works the same way. One glass of the wrong milk won't ruin you. One glass of the right milk won't save you. But repeated daily over years, the biochemical signals compound. You either end up with better metabolic stability, stronger bones, preserved muscle, and sharper cognition, or with insulin resistance, brittle bones, frailty, and fog. Here's how the math works out in biochemistry. Suppose you drink 1 cup of sweetened oat milk in your coffee every morning. That's about 7 grams of added sugar, not counting the oat starches that convert to maltose. Multiply that by 365 days, and you're dosing your body with over 2,500 grams of extra sugar every year, nearly 6 pounds of biochemical stress. At 30, maybe you'd get away with it. At 60, that sugar load pushes your pancreas, liver, and brain further toward dysfunction every single day. Now compare that to 1 cup of unsweetened, protein-rich milk, say grass-fed cow's milk or fortified pea milk. Instead of sugar, you get 8 grams of protein, which stimulates muscle preservation. Instead of destabilizing maltose, you get a steady energy curve. Instead of inflammatory seed oils or gums, you get nutrients your body can actually use. Multiply that by 365 days, and now you've delivered 3,000 grams of high-quality protein straight to your muscles, signaling them to stay alive, strong, and functional. Same daily ritual, totally different biochemical outcome. The body is not built on exceptions, it's built on habits. A single indulgence won't define your health, but what you repeat daily becomes the architecture of your physiology. That's why the milk you drink is more than just taste preference, it's a prescription. You're either writing yourself a script for disease or writing yourself a script for resilience. Consider bones. After 60, every day is a battle against osteoporosis. If you choose the wrong milk, skim milk, stripped of fat and cofactors, or plant milk fortified with poorly absorbed calcium carbonate, you're not helping your bones. You may even be accelerating calcium deposits in the arteries instead of the skeleton. But the right milk, whole milk, with natural vitamin K2 or fortified milk with bioavailable calcium citrate, delivers medicine to your bones every morning. Over a decade, that means fewer fractures, more mobility, and independence. Consider your brain. Your neurons thrive on stable glucose, healthy fats, and anti-inflammatory molecules. The wrong milk, sugar-loaded, processed, laced with seed oils, tells your brain to inflame, to short-circuit, to age faster. The right milk, whole, unsweetened, rich in omega-3 sec or probiotics, delivers raw material for membranes, neurotransmitters, and repair. Over years, that's not just the difference between feeling sharp or foggy, it's the difference between holding on to your mind or losing it. This is the essence of daily medicine. Repetition. A doctor doesn't hand you a random bottle of pills and say, take one if you feel like it. No. They prescribe a daily dose because consistency is what heals. Nutrition works the same way. The milk you choose every day either heals or harms, in increments too small to notice in the moment, but too powerful to ignore over time. What makes this more urgent is the shrinking margin for error after 60. When you were younger, you had a buffer. Miss a few vegetables, eat some junk food, drink whatever was on the shelf, you bounced back. That buffer is gone now. Every wrong choice chips away at your foundation while every right choice reinforces it. That's why daily decisions, no matter how small, are magnified. The tragedy is that most people don't think of milk as a decision at all. It's habitual, automatic, background noise. They don't realize that their morning splash could be silently spiking insulin or stealthily protecting their bones. But the body notices. The body is listening every day to every molecule you put in it. So let's flip the mindset. Instead of asking, which milk tastes best in my coffee? Ask which milk will act as medicine for me today. Instead of thinking of milk as a neutral filler, think of it as your most reliable supplement, because that's what it is, a daily intervention with real biochemical consequences. The right milk is not glamorous. It won't be plastered on billboards or trending on Instagram, but it will be doing its work quietly, day after day, guarding your metabolism, your bones, your muscles, your brain. And when you look back a decade later, still strong, still mobile, still clear-headed, you'll realize that your small daily choice was in fact your most powerful prescription. Milk is not trivial. Milk is daily medicine. And when you're over 60, daily medicine is the difference between merely surviving and truly living.